Hello everyone, is Bringonthechaos Glizzy for another what if. What if Naruto is in the world of the Avatar? What will happen to our dear heroes? Do Naruto go for good, or evil? Before we start, can you like and subscribe for more what if? If you wanted to request a new series, please comment 3 hearts and say your fanfic that you wanted. It really helps. Thanks. Let's start. Chapter 3. I own nothing. Hey Azula, said a younger Naruto, smiling at the Fire Nation princess, with Azula pausing in her katas to give him an annoyed look. Oh, it's you. What do you want, servant? Azula said dismissively, as she resumed her training, with Naruto frowning slightly at her attitude before shrugging it off, since it wasn't the first time she's referred to him that way or dismissed him as quickly. I just wanted to see if you wanted to hang out, or something, said Naruto, with Azula stopping again and laughed mockingly at the whiskered blonde. A princess does not hang out with those below her. If you wish to bother someone, then go find Zuzu or our dear mother. I'm sure they'd love to entertain you. Azula retorted sarcastically, but also with an undertone of bitterness, that her mother would sooner spend time with a servant than her own daughter, even seeing her as a monster just like Zuko was starting to. They weren't wrong, but it still hurt the little girl. Even Mai and Ty Lee, her closest and only friends, were afraid of her and only stayed because she used fear to keep them in line. They've just gotten good at hiding how scared they were of Azula. Everyone was either scared of her or saw her as a monster. Everyone except him. Not once has Naruto ever shown to be terrified of her or treat her like a monster, even when Azula dismisses or insults him. Instead, he keeps coming back, always treating her with kindness, compassion, and empathy. None of which Azula is used to having directed at her, making her confused and unsure of how to act. So, she does what she normally would, she lashes out. Yeah, but I want to spend time with you. And if you don't want to hang out, then maybe we could spar. Naruto offered, with Azula scowling at his words, hating the feeling of hearing him say he wants to spend time with her. No one wants to hang out with her, she forces people to hang out with her. Just like she'll force this annoying loser to go away. You want to spar then, here. Azula shouted, throwing her fist out, unleashing a blast of flames right at Naruto, the blonde boy jumping to the side to avoid the flames. Though rather than being shocked or scared at the flames launched at him, Naruto just kept smiling at Azula. That was pretty great, Azula, you must be practicing a lot lately, to create that many flames, said Naruto, with Azula growling as she charged towards Naruto, jumping into the air, and swinging her leg, releasing an arc of flames towards Naruto. With the whiskered boy running towards it, before flipping over the flames and Azula, landing behind the princess and poking her in the head, making her stumble slightly. But you should learn not to charge against an opponent you know nothing about. You can't always simply overwhelm someone, Naruto said, before rolling to the side as Azula kicked her leg back at him, shooting out a jet of flames. Shut up, shouted Azula, before crouching down and sweeping her legs across the ground, releasing waves of flames at Naruto, who had to jump over them, landing in front of Azula and poking her in the forehead, making her stumble again. It's better to try and get a feel for what your opponent is capable of first, and observe their fighting style to find any weaknesses, then get in close to defeat them, Naruto added, with the Fire Princess now shaking in rage, before taking the chance to grab Naruto by his collar. How's this for getting close? Azula growled, before kicking his legs out from under him, before flipping Naruto over her shoulder onto the ground, the boy grunting at the impact. But before Azula could launch another blast of fire at Naruto, her wrist was grabbed, stopping her. The girl looking to see Zuko was the one who had stopped her. "That's enough, Azula," Zuko said, looking at his younger sister sternly, with Azula scoffing before ripping her hand out of his grip and brushing past him. "Fine, I was getting tired of dealing with this fool, anyway," said Azula, wanting to get far away from Naruto. "Good match, Azula. We should do it again, sometime," Naruto said, smiling at the princess, who clenched her fists tightly and walked faster out of the training room, and away from the feelings his words invoked in her. "Why do you keep bothering with her? She's already made it clear that she doesn't like you. Azula doesn't like anyone," said Zuko, helping his friend up off the ground, having never understood why Naruto constantly tries talking with Azula, when she's made her feelings clear that she wants nothing to do with him. "Zuko, you may not be able to see it, but I can. Azula tries to hide it, but I can see the pain and loneliness in her eyes, whenever she sees other children hanging out or seeing Ursa spend time with you, and not her. No matter how she acts, Azula's still a kid like us, one who just wants to be loved and have friends, like everyone else," Naruto explained to his friend and brother figure, knowing how everyone sees Azula as some kind of monster or is afraid of her, which is only on the surface. Naruto only sees the lonely little girl that just wants to be loved by her mother, to have friends who choose to hang out with her, rather than be forced. But when she can't have any of that, she instead chooses to have people be afraid of her. And is it any surprise, given the only person who does pay attention to Azula, is Ozai. Plus, Naruto had learned from his mother, that if he hadn't arrived in this world, he could have ended up just like Azula. Alone and isolated in Konoha, if the knowledge of him being the Kyuubi Jinchuriki ever got out to the rest of the village. And seeing how he could have turned out, if he wasn't brought to this world, it made Naruto want to reach out to Azula. So, even if she does ignore me, insult me, attack me, and even treat me like dirt, I'm not going to stop spending time with Azula. I will show her that there is someone that cares about her," said Naruto, determined to be there for Azula, while Zuko looked surprised at his words, before looking down frowning in thought. While unknown to the boys, Azula hadn't entirely left and was standing just outside the door, with wide eyes at what Naruto just said, and hearing why he's always bothering her. It made the princess put a hand over her heart, as several unknown feelings welled up inside her. I don't know what this is," Azula thought, before quickly running away to try and ignore the feelings. Opening her eyes, Azula woke up in her quarters on the ship, with a hand over her heart like she had done years ago. Hope and happiness, thought Azula, having learned what she had felt, when she heard what Naruto said and his refusal to leave her alone. Hope that someone did want to willingly be around her and happiness that someone did care. Which soon grew into love, but only for it to just as quickly turn into hate, after what happened. But the love was still there, as evident by what she did, when she finally had Naruto in her grasp. Shaking her head, Azula got out of bed and allowed her robe to fall to the ground, leaving her naked to get dressed. Though before she could start, Azula paused and looked at her reflection in the mirror, specifically at the scar on her cleavage right over her sternum. Gently touching the scar, Azula could still hear her father's words echoing in her mind, just before he gave it to her. Complete with the mockingly solemn tone he used, as well. "I had such high hopes for you, Azula. My daughter, a firebending prodigy unlike any other, you would have been great. But now, I learn of this betrayal, this secret you have kept, resulting in the loss of a potentially valuable asset. I see now that you're just another failure, just like your brother. Azula clenched her fists as she could still hear her father's flames being launched right her, before looking away. Only thankful at the fact that the scar was somewhere she couldn't look at it normally or where it could be visible for others to see, with it usually being covered by her clothes, allowing her to at least pretend it wasn't there. Too bad Zuzu couldn't be as lucky. Azula thought, knowing that Zuko is reminded every day where his scar was. Shaking her head of those thoughts, Azula quickly got dressed and exited her chambers. With Naruto, Korra, Katara, and Sokka**. Meanwhile, Naruto and the Water Tribe siblings were on their way to the Southern Air Temple, thankful that Appa knew the way there. The group hoping to find anything that might have survived the Fire Nation's attack, or clues that some airbenders might have survived, that could help Korra learn airbending. Though the group had to make a stop to rest for the night, knowing it wouldn't do them any good if they were tired or Appa ended falling asleep while flying. Currently, it was early in the morning with Sokka having breakfast, Appa eating some grass as well, while Korra and Katara were practicing their waterbending in the nearby lake, with Naga swimming nearby to catch some fish. Hey, where's Naruto? Sokka asked, the upcoming warrior having not seen the whiskered blonde when he woke up. He got up earlier, saying he wanted to get some early morning training in, before we headed out. Korra answered. Well, we'll need to be heading out soon, if we want to reach the Southern Air Temple before nightfall. I'll go get him, so we can get going, said Katara, exiting the water, with her siblings nodded, before the girl went off to where Naruto said he'd be. Though when Katara found him, she was stunned, when she saw Naruto sparring against a shadow clone, without a shirt on and both of them sweating from their workout. Oh, wow, Katara thought, watching the spar with her cheeks slowly turning red. Despite having to mature into a maternal figure for Korra and Sokka, after their mother was killed, Katara was still a teenage girl with all the hormones that came with it. And the only interactions she's had with a boy in her age range, was her brother. Now here she is, traveling with a handsome boy that's near her age, that is kind, has exotic features, and given what she's seeing from his bare torso, had a great body as well. With it not helping that his hair was matted by sweat and his body was sheened by it. The fact there were two of them didn't help, either. With the sight leaving Katara stunned and flustered, knowing they had to get going, but also not wanting to interrupt the free show. Though Naruto soon took notice of Katara himself and dispelled his clone, before smiling at the girl. Hey Katara. Did you need something? Naruto asked, grabbing a nearby towel, and wiping the sweat off, with his words snapping Katara out of her stunned state, though still having a healthy blush on her face. Oh, right. It's time for us to get to the Southern Air Temple. Korra and Sokka are ready, and I offered to come get you, said Katara, with Naruto nodding at her words. Thanks. Just let me get dried off and get a shirt on, then we can get going, Naruto replied. Oh, there's no need to worry. Here, said Katara, before moving her arms, bending the sweat off Naruto's body and into some bushes, leaving him completely dry. Cool trick, and thanks for the help, Naruto said, this being one of the few times he wished that he was capable of bending, like everyone else in this world, knowing how useful it'd be. Though when Naruto got a whiff of himself, he grimaced at knowing while he was dry, he definitely wasn't clean. I'm definitely gonna need a bath when we get to the air temple. Naruto said, his words making Katara freeze while her blush intensified, as she looked at the shirtless Naruto with wide eyes. If he looks like that without a shirt on, what does the rest of him look like? Thought Katara, unable to stop her gaze from drifting to Naruto's lower half, which only furthered her embarrassment and arousal at where her mind was going. To make matters worse for the waterbender, the sun began rising a little more, with Naruto now seeing her flushed face, with the light now shining on her. With Naruto now blushing as well, realizing that he was standing in front of Katara, without a shirt on. And given how the only teenage boy he saw in their village was Sokka. It's likely the first time she's seen one shirtless, that wasn't her brother. Sorry. I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable, or anything. Said Naruto, turning around and throwing the towel over his shoulders. It's alright, really. I was just surprised and not expecting that. Katara replied, embarrassed at him seeing how she was looking at him. Naruto nodded, while going over and grabbing his shirt, before putting it on, much to Katara's relief and disappointment. With the two starting to head back to camp, getting their embarrassment, and hormones in Katara's case, under control. Hey Naruto, the way you were fighting your clone back there, it also seemed like you were going through bending stances. Are you able to bend an element? Katara asked, with Naruto shaking his head. No, while I can use elemental ninjutsu, it's different from bending, in that I have to use hand signs to perform them, most of the time. As for my stances, I've actually taken inspiration from the way benders fight to incorporate it into my fighting style. As while I can't bend myself, it does allow me to understand how benders fight, and ways to counter them. Naruto answered, surprising Katara at this. Did you learn them after running from the Fire Nation? Asked Katara. I actually learned to observe other benders in the Fire Nation, from Zuko and Azula's uncle Iroh, a former general and known as the Dragon of the West. He got the title, since his signature attack is fire breathing, which is more intense than other firebenders. He studied waterbenders, earthbenders, and airbenders to better understand their abilities and tactics, even creating a few original techniques of his own, from what he learned. Said Naruto, surprising the girl once again. Wow, he sounds like a powerful bender. Katara said, worried at the idea of facing someone with the kind of power, only to be confused when Naruto chuckled. Oh, you wouldn't need to worry about Iroh attacking us, he'd be more likely to sit down, while offering us tea and some advice. Despite having been a general and participating in several battles, he's a really nice guy, he simply did what he did in service of his nation, not out of malicious intent. Naruto said, knowing Iroh was normally a kind and jovial man, only really getting angry at something that would endanger the balance of the world or the spirits. He was also glad that Iroh had followed Zuko and Azula in their banishment, along with Mai and Ty Lee. Glad they both had people that cared about them around. But yeah, Iroh taught me the basics of observing benders and how they fight. And after I left the Fire Nation, I spent a lot of time traveling around all the nations, getting first-hand experience while I was hiding. I saw a lot of interesting places and some interesting people, as well. Said Naruto, with Katara smiling at this, since aside from the being hunted part, it sounded nice being able to travel the world like that. That sounds really great. Katara stated, with Naruto nodding in agreement. It was. And while the circumstances might not be the most ideal, I can show you, Korra, and Sokka all the places I've been to. Maybe even introduce you to some of the people I've met and befriended," said Naruto, smiling at the water tribe girl, which Katara returned. "I'd really like that, and I'm sure Korra and Sokka would as well," Katara replied, excited at the idea of exploring more of the world, while they helped Korra master the four elements. It wasn't long until the two arrived back at camp, seeing Korra, Naga, and Sokka already on top of Appa, waiting for them. "And what exactly took you both so long?" Sokka questioned, eyeing him suspiciously, not liking the idea of either of his sisters being alone with Naruto, seeing the way they'd occasionally look at him, and Sokka refused to have his innocent little sisters being taken advantage of by any guy, even if he'd admit that Naruto was alright with his previous actions. "We were just talking," said Katara, annoyed at Sokka's overprotectiveness, when she and Korra are more than capable of taking care of themselves. "Are you sure it was just talking? You both were gone an awful long time," Korra said teasingly, though with a twitch in her eye, when Naruto and Katara blushed lightly, remembering their earlier encounter. "What happened? What did you do?" Sokka demanded, while pointing his boomerang at Naruto with narrowed eyes. "No, nothing. We didn't do anything else but talk," said Naruto. "Let's just get going to the air temple," Katara said as they climbed up onto Appa's saddle, with Sokka was watching them with narrowed eyes, while Korra giving her twin a light glare before looking forward. "Appa, yip yip," said Korra, as Appa took flight and began flying towards the southern air temple. Fire Nation ship. Back on the Fire Nation ship, Zuko and Azula were currently sparring on the top deck, with Zuko showing to be more than a match against Azula, having grown stronger and more experienced since their banishment, with his sister to spar against rather than regular soldiers. Given Azula didn't hold back and was much stronger than regular soldiers, with it also pushing Zuko to train harder to beat her. While they may have gotten closer over the years, thanks to Naruto, allowing them to actually act like siblings rather than enemies, they still had their sibling rivalry, with Azula still taking enjoyment in taunting and teasing her brother, but in a healthier way, rather than maliciously. "Congratulations, Suzu, you've improved enough that you're actually as strong as me. As strong as I was 5 years ago," Azula said with a smirk, once their spar ended, while Zuko scowled before shaking his head, now knowing there wasn't any actual bite behind her words. Though Zuko honestly wasn't sure what's better, Azula simply insulting him to his face or Azula giving backhanded compliments. "You, soldier. What's the status report on the condition of the ship?" Azula said, looking at a soldier, wanting to know what damage the ship took after leaving the South Pole, knowing they had a few close encounters with some glaciers, not to mention the brief skirmish with Naruto could have led to some damage, as well. The hull took some minor damage after scraping against some glaciers. No major damage and is easily fixable, reported the soldier, before another soldier walked up and stood in attention. "We are nearing one of the Fire Nation's recently conquered territories, with Commander Zhao currently overseeing it. Should we dock into port to resupply and have the ship looked at?" asked the soldier. His words made the siblings grimace, neither of them really liking Zhao and his arrogance, and would prefer to not encounter him, if possible. Especially since they had just encountered Naruto, not too long ago, and didn't want to deal with Zhao as a rival in chasing him. Knowing the commander would try to usurp their mission to capture Naruto, if it meant the chance to get in their father's good graces and get another promotion. Not to mention, Zhao would likely inform the entire Fire Nation that Naruto's been spotted, sending any and all ships chasing after him, which would make their mission even more difficult. How are we on supplies and rations? Zuko asked, wanting to avoid docking if they could. We still have, at the most, 6 months' worth of food, water, and other necessities for the time being. The soldier replied. Then we'll keep moving. If we don't have to dock for anything, then we won't, said Azula, while Zuko nodded in agreement, with the soldier bowing before going to tell the captain. While you both may have prolonged things, it's inevitable that Zhao and other high-ranked officials within the Fire Nation will soon be in pursuit of Naruto. Since it won't be long before there are sightings of a sky bison, accompanied by 3 water tribe teenagers and a boy with bright blonde hair. Iroh said, knowing it'd be inevitable that others will be after Naruto, as well. We are aware of that, uncle. But at least this way, we have a head start on anyone else, said Zuko, the siblings aware of this inevitability, but knew they could at least buy as much time as they could with the crew. Meanwhile, the crew had finally arrived at the Southern Air Temple, initially being amazed at the sight of the temple built on top of the mountain. Though when they landed at the temple, they were saddened when they saw just how empty and desolate it was. With Appa being especially saddened at the sight of his and Aang's home being in such a state. It's empty, Katara said, while sadly looking around the temple as they walked through it, with Korra taking everything in with a downcast expression, wincing every once and a while as she got memory flashes from Aang's time here. That's where he and his friends played airball, that's where the bison used to sleep, said Korra, feeling like she's been here before, despite it being her first time actually being here, the new avatar smiling when Naga bumped her head against her, with the girl petting her companion's head. And the Fire Nation are the ones responsible, Sokka said, frowning when he found an old Fire Nation helmet among the snow. Naruto sighed, having known the Fire Nation had committed several atrocities during the war, but it was different seeing firsthand the aftermath of an attack, rather than just hearing about it. It only got worse, when the group stumbled upon the mummified and charred skeletal remains of the air nomads. Katara and Korra gasping in horror at the sight, while Sokka gulped and tried stealing himself but still shook, and Naruto just looked around in sadness. You know a bad thing about growing up in the Fire Nation, you're able to learn the difference between the male and female skeletons, that's been burned to the bones. All these, they're only men and boys, said Naruto, before creating several clones that began gathering and wrapping up the bodies, wanting to give the monks proper burials, with the siblings joining him in gathering the bodies. With Naruto also creating several clones to begin fixing the damage to the temple, at least what they could fix. While they can't fix all the damage, they can at least make habitable, while they're staying in the temple. Plus, it might be a good place to use as a base to rest and hide in, while they're in the area. Once they had finished gathering the bodies, they began exploring the rest of the temple for any clues or hidden passageways. Anything that could lead them to any hidden scrolls on airbending. Did you guys find anything? Sokka asked, once they met up after searching the temple, only getting negative responses. I couldn't find anything, replied Naruto. We didn't find anything either. Though we did find this map, it shows the locations of the other air temples that we could try searching, as well, Katara said, while holding out the map she found. Why wouldn't the Fire Nation burn this, like everything else? Questioned Sokka, while looking the map over. Guess they didn't feel it was necessary, since they were going to wipe out the air nomads, anyway, Korra said, while shrugging. Well, we can try searching the eastern and northern air temples to see if we can find anything there. But we should hold off on going to the western air temple, since it's in the Fire Nation," said Naruto, with the others nodding in agreement, figuring it'd be better if they kept it a secret that Korra was the Avatar and trying to learn airbending, especially since they're already targeted by being with Naruto. If it was discovered the Avatar is with them as well, then who knows how many firebenders will be after them. Well, it's getting late. We should get some rest, before continuing the search tomorrow," said Katara, getting nods in agreement, as they saw the sun was already starting to set. Though before they could make camp, they all tensed when they heard a sudden noise, making them get ready for a fight, thinking it might be a firebender. Only to be surprised, when instead, they saw a lone lemur looking at them curiously. "A lemur," said Naruto confused, before smiling at the little creature. "Dinner," Sokka said, looking at the lemur hungrily, about to try and grab it, before being stopped by Naruto. "Don't even think about it. You aren't eating the lemur. Besides, we still have plenty of food to have and can maybe even find some around here, as well," said Naruto, glaring at the water tribe boy, before smiling at the lemur and kneeling down. "Hey there, little guy," Naruto said, holding out his hand, the lemur hesitantly approaching him, sniffing his hand, before jumping onto Naruto's shoulder. "I guess he likes you," said Korra, smiling when Appa and Naga went to look at the new animal companion. "Yeah, he does. I guess we just need to think of name for you, huh?" Naruto said, petting the lemur, who chirped as he jumped onto Naga's back then onto Appa's head. With that, the four had dinner, before heading to the rooms they'll be using, calling it a night once they were finished. Fire Nation ship. Back on the ship, Azula was also getting ready to call it a night, the princess currently in her quarters with Mai and Ty Lee, making small talk. Her reunion with Naruto reminded Azula of how terrible she used to be to the both of them. Pushing Ty Lee around for being better than her in gymnastics, making fun of Mai's crush of Zuko, and keeping them both in line with fear. It was only after she started opening up to Naruto and having him talk some sense into her, that Azula actually started trying to be a better friend. "I never did apologize, did I?" Azula said, making Ty Lee and Mai look at her in confusion. "Apologize for what?" asked Mai. "For being a terrible friend, for everything I did to you both. I never really apologized, but I am now. I'm sorry, for everything, for not appreciating you both more, for putting up with me for so long," Azula said, the two looking at her in surprise, having never expected to hear Azula apologize for anything really. Before Ty Lee smiled brightly and even Mai had a small smile on her face. "You don't have to apologize. I doubt we were the easiest people to get along with, either," said Mai, given her closed-off nature and Ty Lee's incessant happiness. "Mai's right. You don't have to apologize, Azula. Besides, it's thanks to Naruto that our friendship is better than ever," Ty Lee said, happy that Naruto's influence on Azula helped them become better friends. "Yeah, it really is," Azula muttered solemnly, knowing if it wasn't for Naruto, both Mai and Ty Lee would have eventually turned on her, when they found something that helped them overcome their fear of her. Now though, she believed that wouldn't happen and that they really are friends now. "So, how are things going for you and Zuzu?" asked Azula, while looking at Mai, given that since their banishment, the two had interacted more and got the chance to start a relationship. Though when Mai sighed, Azula and Ty Lee figured it wasn't going very well. "We decided to end things between us. With Zuko having to focus on his hunt for the Avatar, along with Naruto re-emerging, he doesn't have time to focus on a relationship. So, we ended things and agreed to just be friends. Mai answered, a little disappointed at their relationship ending, but also understood Zuko's main priority at the moment was hunting the Avatar, and now Naruto, as well. Oh, that's sad. Are you alright, Mai? Ty Lee asked, wondering if she was alright after the breakup. I'm sorry that happened. I know you both cared about each other, a lot. Said Azula, with Mai nodding and waved it off. It's fine, and I'm glad that it ended on a peaceful note. Besides, I'm glad we can still be friends, it saves us the whole awkward interactions. Mai said. After a few moments, Mai and Ty Lee left for their own quarters, with all three girls soon going to sleep. Chapter 4. I Own Nothing. The next morning, after their arrival at the Southern Air Temple, Korra woke up with a groan, having never been a morning person. Mornings are evil. Korra thought, wanting nothing more than to go back to sleep, but also knew she had to get up, so they can search the rest of the temple for anything that could help her learn airbending. With that in mind, the new Avatar sighed in resignation, before getting up and heading towards the wash area, to take a bath. Though since Korra was still half asleep, she failed to notice or hear someone already in the wash area, with the girl walking right in on them. Korra's eyes immediately flew open in shock, along with becoming flushed and aroused, when she saw she walked in on an equally shocked Naruto, who had just stepped out of his own bath. Oh spirits, Korra thought, looking at Naruto's upper body, wondering how a boy in her age range could look like that already, before her eyes' inevitability trailed down to his lower half to see what else he had. The sight making Korra's face burn bright red, before quickly rushing out of the washroom. So sorry. Dick didn't he head I mean sorry. Korra squeaked as she scampered away, leaving an embarrassed Naruto in her wake. Why does that keep happening? Naruto thought, given what happened with Katara the other day, along with all the other times that happened. It didn't help that he could hear his mother giggling wickedly and muttering about all the grandbabies she'll get to spoil. Meanwhile, Korra was running as fast as she could, away from the washroom and trying to calm down her arousal. With the girl ending up running straight into Katara, who looked at her twin in worry, after seeing her flushed expression. Korra, are you alright? Did something happen? Katara asked, with Korra rapidly nodding her head. Fine, perfectly fine. Why wouldn't I be? I just ran into Naruto, back there, said Korra, with Katara looking at the direction Korra came from, before realizing what had happened, given her own encounter with Naruto, yesterday. Oh, you saw him didn't you? Without a shirt, right? Said Katara, figuring she saw Naruto getting dressed, only to see Korra's face turning a bright red. I saw so much more than that. Korra muttered, with Katara being confused for a moment, before her eyes widened in shock and realization, while her own face became flushed as well. Oh, Katara said, seeing what Korra meant and what happened. While she had just seen Naruto shirtless and sweaty, Korra had it much worse in seeing not just his upper body, but all of him. Ah, how big was he? Katara asked, unable to help herself in wanting to know, especially after imagining what Naruto looked like yesterday. The question made Korra gulp, pretty sure she wouldn't be forgetting that any time soon. About 6 nearly 7, I think. Answered Korra, leaving Katara stunned at the answer, given both she and Korra had been given medical lessons by the Gran, so they were aware of the average size that most men had, but it seemed that Naruto was above average. Oh, repeated Katara, her gaze unwillingly looking to where the washroom was. Though when the sisters looked at each other, they became more aroused and embarrassed, as they realized just what they were talking about. We're definitely going to need cold baths. Katara muttered, with Korra nodding in agreement, both knowing they'll need cold baths to cool off and calm themselves down. Later. After everyone had gotten cleaned and dressed, they all sat down to have breakfast, though Sokka was suspicious by the way his sisters and Naruto were blushing, along with avoid eye contact with each other. Part of him wanted to interrogate them on their behavior, to find out if something happened between them. But a bigger part of Sokka also felt that it'd be more horrifying than anything he could possibly think of. Eventually the latter part won out, as Sokka didn't want to risk the chance of scarring himself for life. Thankfully for Naruto, he found a distraction from what happened that morning. He noticed the lemur he found eating several peaches. Huh, guess you really like peaches, don't you? Naruto stated, smiling, as the lemur stopped and looked at him, while tilting his head, this getting the others' attention as they looked at the lemur. In that case, how about Momo? Said Naruto, deciding on the lemur's name, while now named Momo tilted his head again, as if in thought, before chirping in approval, before he went back to eating his peaches. So, what do we do now? Keep searching the temple to see if we can try to find anything else. Or should we leave and try searching one of the other temples? Sokka asked. We keep searching the temple. While we haven't found anything, besides the map, something tells me that there's still something else here. Said Naruto, with Korra and Katara nodding in agreement, both wanting to make sure they searched every inch of the temple before leaving, not wanting to risk overlooking something important. Nodding at this, the group finished eating, before heading out to continue searching the temple. Eventually finding themselves outside of one of the blue spires, with a statue of an air nomad right outside the entrance. I wonder who this was. Katara said, looking at the statue, with Korra looking at it while feeling another memory flash again. Monk Yacho, he was Aang's mentor and guardian. This is the Air Temple Sanctuary. There's supposed to be someone inside that could teach Aang about being the Avatar. But I guess they'll have to teach me, instead. Said Korra before walking past the statue and into the tower, with her siblings and Naruto following after her. But Korra, it's been over 100 years, no one could have survived that long in there. Katara stated. Well, we can't just leave without checking, even better, if it's someone capable of teaching me airbending. Besides, Appa survived that long frozen in the ice. Replied Korra, with Katara pausing for a moment, while thinking about it. Good point. Said Katara, willing to accept that, before the crew soon arrived at a large wooden door. The door had a combination of metal-colored pipes and 3 blue, rolled-up pipes that were similar looking and arranged like the symbol for airbending. The door was framed by the branches of an old tree, standing on the left of it, as the hallway is illuminated by sunlight that falls through little, round windows. Great, how do we get in? Is there a key or something? Sokka said, trying to push the doors open, only for them to not budge. The key is airbending. Said Korra, sighing, while wondering how they were supposed to get in, when she can't airbend yet. Let me try. Naruto said, stepping forward, making the siblings look at him in confusion. What? Can you control the air with your magic powers, too? asked Sokka in sarcastic tone. Yes. Wind style, Gale Palm Jutsu. Naruto said, thrusting his hands forward, unleashing a powerful gale winds into the pipes, with the wind traveling through them as it twisted the pipes into order before the cymbals rotated and revealed horns that began whistling. Sure, why not? Sokka deadpanned, wondering why he even tried questioning it. Pushing the doors open, the four were surprised to find a large chamber filled with statues in a spiral pattern, before going up a narrow walkway. The walkway wrapping around the tower, all the way to the top, filled with dozens and dozens of statues. Hello. Is anyone in here? Korra called out, wondering if there really was someone here, before looking at the statues and feeling like she knew who they were, despite not recognizing any of them. Who are all these people? Wondered Katara, looking at the statues, seeing they depicted people wearing attire from the four nations. I think these were all the past avatars. See, that one's an airbender. Korra said, realizing who these statues were. And this one's a waterbender. They're lined up in a pattern, air, water, earth and fire. Said Katara, seeing that Korra was right and they were the past avatars. These are all your past lives, Korra. Naruto said, amazed at seeing just how many avatars there were, knowing that the avatar has existed for as long as anyone could remember, but he didn't think the avatar's been around this long. It made him wonder just who the first avatar was, and how they even came to be. There are so many. Stated Korra, just as amazed at how many avatars there were before her, while walking to the center of the spiral, before standing in front of the statue of a firebender avatar. Looking at the statue, Korra looked at it in wonder, feeling mesmerized by it, even swearing she saw the eyes gleam for a moment. Korra, snap out of it. Said Katara, shaking her twin slightly, with Korra blinking in confusion, not realizing what happened before looking at the statue again. Huh. What happened? Korra said, wondering what just happened, feeling like she went into a trance. You just kind of zoned out when you looked at this statue. Who is that? Katara asked, while looking at the statue. That's Avatar Roku. The avatar before Aang. Said Korra, not knowing how she knew Roku's name, figuring it was just another memory thing. You were a firebender. Sokka said, frowning as he looked at the statue. She was every kind of bender. And don't judge Roku too harshly, he wasn't in support of Sozin's desire to conquer the other nations and was actually against it. He's actually considered a traitor, for not supporting it. Said Naruto, having learned about Roku during his time in the Fire Nation, while the siblings were surprised at this information, before turning back to Roku's statue. There's no writing. How do you know his name? Katara asked, while looking at Korra, wondering just how she knew his name. The same way I knew Aang's, I just did. Answered Korra, only growing more confused and unsure about being the avatar, with each strange thing happening. Looking at the empty space next to Roku, Naruto frowned, knowing who it was supposed to meant for, but no one was around to make his statue. Going through some hand signs, Naruto slammed his hands on the ground, with a pillar of stone rising up in the spot, before breaking apart. With it now showing a statue of Aang, holding his glider behind him, to make sure the last airbender isn't forgotten. Thank you. Korra said, smiling at the statue, glad that even if no one knew Aang, he would still be remembered and honored. Naruto, just how many elements can you manipulate? Katara asked, amazed at seeing him use by earth and wind, with Sokka and Korra also wanting to know, as well. I can manipulate 5 elements, wind, water, earth, fire, and lightning as its own element. Though right now, I only have an affinity for wind, water, and lighting. But I'll develop an earth and fire affinity, in time. Replied Naruto, much to their astonishment that he could control all 4 elements, plus lightning. Wow, that's amazing. But wait, if you don't have an earth affinity, how could you manipulate the earth just now? Korra asked. Amazed, Naruto could use all 4 elements like the Avatar, but was confused as to how he could manipulate the earth, without an earth affinity. Unlike with bending, ninjutsu doesn't require you to have an affinity for an element, to use the elemental ninjutsu that's aligned with it. Being aligned to a certain element just means it's easier to use those kinds of jutsu, and they use less chakra. With it being possible to develop an affinity for all the elements, with enough time and training. Naruto explained, surprising them, since their entire lives, they believed only the Avatar could master more than one element, now they learn anyone with chakra could do the same thing. It also made him shiver, remembering what Naruto said the Fire Nation would do, if they captured him. They'd essentially be able to create an entire army of avatars, if they wanted to, with Naruto's abilities. Okay. But what do you mean by lightning, as its own element? I've never heard of lightning bending, before. Is it some kind of variation of airbending? Katara asked, figuring that since lightning is affiliated with the sky, lightning bending is probably a secret form of airbending that the Fire Nation might have stumbled upon, during the Air Nomad massacre. While the Air Nomads are peaceful, and she doubted that they would use something as offense-oriented and destructive as lightning. The grandmother had told them, that all forms of bending had their forbidden arts. With Kanna becoming uncomfortable, when she and Korra asked her on what the forbidden arts of waterbending were. And given the nature of lightning, she could see why it could be considered forbidden by the Air Nomads. With only the most skilled and mentally sound of monks could use. It's called lightning generation. And no, it's actually an advanced form of firebending, referred to as the cold-blooded fire. It's a rare form of bending, that only the most advanced and skilled firebenders are capable of. I only know of 3 firebenders, who are capable of creating lightning, Azula, Iroh, and Fire Lord Ozai, himself. Said Naruto, though he could understand the confusion, and actually wondered if it was possible to make a variation of lightning generation with airbending. If it's possible, it will probably be caused by using airbending to manipulate the electrons and static electricity in the air, forming the lightning externally, instead of internally, like firebenders do. Naruto thought, though decided to keep that to himself for the time being, until Korra is far enough along in her airbending training. This made Korra shiver, knowing she'll eventually have to fight the Fire Lord, and hearing he can create lightning, unnerved her. Especially at the chance she'll be hit by it, since being hit by fire was bad enough, and she didn't want to think of what lightning would feel like. Before the Avatar looked at Naruto when he put a hand on her shoulder. Thankfully, from what Iroh told me, it's also possible to redirect lightning. He discovered this skill by studying waterbenders, so we'll be able to try and experiment with it, when we get to your firebending training. Though I'm only aware of it, I don't know the mechanics behind it. Naruto added, relieving Korra a little, that she could learn to redirect lightning. Even better is that the skill was created by studying waterbending. Well, that's good. But before we think of Korra learning firebending, let's focus on making sure she can learn airbending. Sokka stated, since she could learn the other elements anytime she wanted, but their options for learning airbending were severely limited. This made the others nod in agreement, before looking around the room, getting an idea after seeing how it was opened. Hey, I just thought of something. This room could only be accessed with airbending. What if there are other rooms like it? That could be why we haven't found anything, because any important rooms can only be found by using airbending, said Katara, smiling, since this would mean there are still hidden rooms that haven't been found, that they could search for. That would explain our lack of luck in finding anything. The monks must have kept copies of some scrolls hidden away, that we'd be able to find. Naruto said. Great. Then let's get back to searching. Korra said, glad that they'll hopefully be able to find something that can help her learn airbending. With that, the group began searching the temple again, this time for any places that looked like they'd be able to open with airbending. With Naruto eventually finding some small openings in a wall, before using the Gale Palm Jutsu to blow wind into them. This caused the wall to rumble slightly, before slowly opening up, revealing a hidden passageway. Never thought I'd see monks using hidden passages, Korra said. Well, let's see what they put down here, said Naruto, as the group entered the passageway. It didn't take long before they entered a room, and were glad to see some intact scrolls inside, all filled with airbending techniques. Huh, some of these look pretty advanced for beginner lessons, said Katara, thinking that the scrolls only were to teach beginners airbending, but some of them seemed complex. Yeah, they do. Maybe they kept some intermediate and advanced scrolls down here just in case any were destroyed, Sokka said. Maybe, but why though? The air nomads were monks and didn't learn to fight, how could anything be destroyed by them? And no one else could even get to the temple, we needed Appa to get here. So, why keep advanced techniques locked away? Katara said. They knew, said Naruto, picking up a scroll with a frown. They knew what? Korra asked, taking the scroll when Naruto held it out for her. The Avatar being shocked, when she saw it wasn't an airbending scroll, instead it was one explaining the spiritual aspects of being the Avatar. About the war. The air nomads must have known that with Roku's death, the Fire Nation would want to prevent the next Avatar from being able to stop them, knowing the next Avatar would be an airbender. They must have taken these precautions, in the event that the Fire Nation attacked them, so Aang could eventually find them, if he ever came back. Not only to help teach him the spiritual aspects of being the Avatar, but also to help him in rebuilding the air nomads, Naruto said, surprising the three, before Korra noticed a note tucked into the scroll. The girl grabbing the note and unfolding it to see what it said. Aang. If you are reading this, then what we have predicted has come to pass. The Fire Nation has attacked the temples and destroyed them, wiping out the air nomads, all with the purpose of killing you. Should you ever return and find this room, just know, we are truly sorry for what we had done. It is our fault that you run away, revealing your status as the Avatar too soon, isolating and pressuring you, believing that by knowing of your status earlier, you would have more time to learn and master the elements. We had even planned to separate you from Gyacho, believing he was taking your attention away from your studies and duties as the Avatar. But in the end, all we did was make you resent your title and destiny, leading you to run away as you did. Perhaps, this is the spirit's answer to our actions, for putting such a burden on a child. I can only hope you'll find it in your heart to forgive us for our mistakes, but should we never meet again, we can pass on knowing that you are safe and out of the Fire Nation's grasps. By the time Korra finished reading the note, her entire body was shaking, not just from the note, but as more of Aang's memories surfacing in her mind. The girl feeling like she was right there as Aang learned he was the Avatar. The loneliness and isolation from his friends, after it was revealed. The pressure of having to bring balance to the world. Overhearing the head monk's plan to separate him from Gyatso, Aang's father figure and the only person that didn't treat him differently, after it was revealed he was the Avatar. And the resentment that he felt for all of it, before finally running away. Korra shouted before kicking over a table, startling her siblings at her outburst. He was 12. He was a 12-year-old boy, and they all just expected him to be some great savior. The reasons this war has lasted as long as it has, the reason Aang died in the ice. Korra shouted, throwing, or breaking anything she could get her hands on, with Naruto being sure to make sure to keep the scrolls out of her reach, knowing they couldn't risk them being damaged. After a few moments, Korra slumped against the wall panting, sliding down until she was sitting on the floor, with her face buried in her knees. Katara and Sokka hesitantly approaching her, grabbing the note that she had discarded on the floor, with the two and Naruto reading it. After reading it, the crew cursed the monks for what they did, with their actions inadvertently leading to the 100-year war getting as bad as it did, along with Aang's death. What am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to be the Avatar, or even convince anyone I am the Avatar? They all believe the Avatar is an airbender, I can barely waterbend. Said Korra, not knowing how she could save the world and stop the Fire Nation, knowing it was supposed to be Aang who did that. He was already an airbending master, when he was younger than her, while all she could do is move some water. And yet she's expected to master all 4 elements and take on an entire nation, being led by a powerful and dangerous firebender, who could also shoot lightning. And yet the entire world was counting on her. If that's the case, then the world was doomed. Korra, said Naruto, crouching down and putting his hands on her shoulders, making the girl look up at him. I know we've only just met, and I don't know everything about you. But what I do know is that you're strong, stronger than you think, and you can do this. Sure, you only know a little waterbending, but that's from being self-taught. Think of what you'll be able to do with the right training. Aang may have already mastered airbending, but so can you, just like you'll master earthbending and firebending. You can do this, Korra. Naruto said, with Korra looking at him in surprise and hesitance. You really think I can stop the Fire Nation? Asked Korra, still unsure that she had what it takes to end this war. I know you can. And you won't be doing it alone. Naruto replied, with Katara and Sokka nodding in agreement. He's right, Korra. We'll be with you every step of the way. Said Katara, knowing she'll be by her twin sister's side, through it all. Dad trusted me to stay and look after you both, and that's exactly what I'll do. Sokka added, refusing to stay behind, while his sisters rush off into danger, making sure he'll be there to help them. Korra looked at her siblings, before looking at Naruto, and seeing the determination and belief in his eyes, belief in her. Thank you. Said Korra smiling, which Naruto returned, before offering her hand up, which she took. Always. Naruto replied, before the group began gathering the airbending scrolls, glad that they were able to find them, along with the other scrolls on the spiritual aspects of being the Avatar. Along with being able to restock their food supplies, with what was still in the temple. They knew it was time to leave and continue their journey, as they packed up their stuff and climbed onto Appa, before taking flight. Though Naruto did also leave a few dozen clones at the Southern Air Temple, to continue fixing and repairing it, should they ever come back. Those scrolls will be a good step in learning airbending. But we still have a long way to go before you've mastered all 4 elements. Not to mention you still need to master waterbending, earthbending, and firebending. Said Naruto, knowing that even with the scrolls, they still had a long way to go. Well, with waterbending, we'll be able to travel to the North Pole and Northern Water Tribe. I'm sure there will be plenty of waterbenders there to teach me and Katara waterbending. Said Korra, with Katara nodding in agreement, while being eager for the chance to learn more waterbending, as well. And since we'll be flying through the Earth Kingdom most of the time, to go to and from the North Pole, I'm sure there will be plenty of places to stop by to find an instructor to teach Korra earthbending, as well. Katara said, making the others nod in agreement, glad they had a plan for Korra to begin learning 3 elements at the moment. True, and I actually know some people from my travels, that are quite skilled in earthbending. With some of them, even being masters in the art. Naruto said, much to the shock of the siblings, before they grinned at the idea of finding an earthbending instructor sooner, rather than later. Though, unknown to the group, Zuko and Azula were watching them through telescopes, narrowing their eyes at the direction they're flying in. Tell the captain to set a course and follow that bison. Zuko ordered a soldier, who saluted before going to inform the captain. You won't get away a second time. Thought Azula, knowing the next time she had Naruto in her grasp, he won't escape again.
Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and like this video if you want some more what if video. Comment 3 hearts for more what if.